Hey everyone, I think we're waiting for a few more people, but I think we'll start just to get going. My name is Tobias Ostrin, and I'm the Chief Curator and Deputy Director for Curatorial Affairs here at PAM. And we're thrilled tonight to be celebrating Chapter 2 of our exhibition project called On the Horizon, Contemporary Cuban Art from the Jorge M. Pérez Collection. And this project really is a celebration of the more than 170 works that Jorge Pérez has given to the Museum of Contemporary Cuban Artists, which has included funds to acquire additional works, which we've been doing over the past year. I decided to show this collection in 3 different chapters as a way to kind of focus in on particular thematics that I'm drawing out of the collection, and to really show how we'll be using the collection in the future, sort of within focused thematic exhibitions, but also integrated into the larger permanent collection at the museum as a whole. So tonight you will see this thematic, which is called Abstracting History, kind of played out with objects that are throughout the museum, and then a sort of concentrated area in the Mary Spencer Gallery, which is upstairs on the 2nd floor. So this chapter, Abstracting Histories, I'm really focusing in on works in the collection that address various histories of abstraction. There are many works in this selection that address geometric abstraction, and the legacies of geometric abstraction, but also I'm interested in how artists are using abstraction as a verb. I'm thinking about different abstract histories and interpreting them in particular ways, or taking historical material and abstracting it, or manipulating it to create new meanings for that work. You know, it's thinking about abstraction both as a formal device and for critical and subversive thought, and as well as a sort of that's how I'm sort of thinking about this selection of works. So in thinking about that and celebrating tonight's opening, I was interested in inviting Flavio here and Glenda to sort of think about their own investigations of different types of abstraction, and we'll let them speak about their work and contextualize the work in the shows in their larger practices. But just briefly, let me introduce both of them, and then Flavio will speak first, and then Glenda. Flavio Garciandía was born in Villa Clara in 1954, and now lives and works in Mexico City. We've had many traumatic journeys to get here. I mean, Flavio just getting here after the Mexican earthquake, and Glenda was traveling during the whole hurricane. So I just want to thank both of you for getting here and being here under difficult conditions. Garciandía's work forms a part of the permanent collection of the Museo Nacional de Bellas Artes in Havana, Museum of Modern Art in Lodz in Poland, Museo de Tertulia in Cali in Colombia, among other collections. He graduated from the Escuela Nacional de Arte, INA, in 1973, and then completed his training at ISA in 1991, the Instituto Superior de Arte in Havana. He then went on to be a very influential teacher during the 80s at ISA, and is very much a seminal figure in the history of contemporary Cuban art. He was one of the co-founders of the Havana Biennial in 1984, and in 1986 he participated in the Venice Biennale. He's received many international awards and recognitions, including a Guggenheim Fellowship in 1993. He's had over 20 solo exhibitions, including I'll translate it, a view of the Tropical Art Museum, which was at Bellas Artes in Havana in 1985, and I hope he'll talk about his notions of tropical art, as well as an exhibition that we're gonna see images of called the translation would be Pinnacle and or Decadence in Cuban Art from 2006. which is at the Museo Nacional de Bellas Artes. Glenda León was born in Havana in 1976. She's in many collections, including the Centre Pompidou collection, the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts collection, Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, and the Art Gallery of Ontario. She began her studies at the age of 12 and began showing her work professionally in 1999. She also studied classical ballet and earned a bachelor's degree in art history from the University of Havana. She graduated from the Academy of New Media in Cologne, Germany in 2007. She was part of the Venice Biennale, the Cuban Pavilion of the Venice Biennale, the 55th Venice Biennale, with her installation Music of the Spheres in 2013. She's also participated in the Havana Biennial, in the Site Santa Fe Biennial in New Mexico, and El Jaffe Biennial in Girona, Spain. She's received many recognitions in the US, Paul Krasner Foundation Award, as well as the Fonderie Darling in Montreal, like a residency there. We'll start with Flavio, but before beginning, I did want to just iterate and thanks from an institutional point of view and a personal point of view, just Jorge Perez and Darlene, for this gift and just the excitement that they bring to supporting contemporary Cuban artists. And the collection is really exciting. It continues to grow, and it's just an incredible journey getting to know artists working throughout the world. And one of the interesting things about how Jorge really approaches the idea of Cuban art is it's a very open-ended definition of what Cuban art is. I mean, we have artists, second, third generation Cuban artists working in Miami or Berlin or New York, as well as artists working on the island. And he looks very far and deep and creates very strong relationships with these artists. And one of the things we're trying to show in these exhibitions is he often collects in depth, the same artists. He becomes very involved with them and allows us to collect them in depth. And so I just wanted to share my enthusiasm for this ongoing project, and that's what we're really celebrating here tonight. So, but to Flavio.
Well, good evening. First of all, to thank Tom for the invitation to talk about my work. Secondly, please excuse my English, which is very poor. And I would like to show you a video about the work I did, you mentioned, in the National Museum of Art in Havana in 2006. I invited more than 160 artists living in Cuba and outside Cuba to choose a color from a pantone of chart of colors and to paint the strip of the chosen color. I think the video talked by itself. I hope you enjoyed it. You will see. We can talk after the video, your impression. I could say it was a bridge between artists living anywhere. And it was a feast of collaborating artists in one project. So please see the video.
Yeah, the video is 10 minutes, so we'll watch it.
Well, that's it. It was a sort of performance during 15 days in the museum. I invited about 10, 12 artists every day. Every day was recorded, the work, edited by night. So you could see how the project developed at this moment. At the end of the show, well, the show was the video and the big canvas. At the end of the show, as you saw, the canvas was rolled and put in sort of faded a box. And in the future, if it is exhibited again, it will be the box and the video. The camera will never leave the box. I invited, as you saw, artists of all generations, and I painted the street for the artists which were not present. At the same time, we got the satellite connection in order to the artists which were not present at this moment. I paint the street for them. That's about the video. I would like to show you my anthological book, very fast. It's a book it gathered all my work for more than 40 years, I think. It goes backward from the last work that was Agua de Galicia to the first work of mine. Well, in general, my work is about painting, I could say so. And titles are very important in my work. And there is a relationship with history in general, history of abstraction in particular. I used to, in the series of pins, the painting is in the show. I create history, fictional histories about artists visiting Cuba. Mostly artists which are my master, what I admire most. In the case of the big black beans, it's a history, a fake history, of course, about the visit of Reinhardt to Cuba. And the idea is Reinhardt had come to Cuba, he got a dish of black beans. I said, wow, I got it, black on black. So it created a relationship between the local, the main food in Cuba, which are black beans, and this history of abstraction in general. The beans doesn't have to. So this series is White on White, and the title are Malevich and Rayman in Havana. Sort of history of monochrome paintings with the beans as a theme, as a medium. Well, my work seems, if you see the book and what you are seeing now, it looks like the work of many artists, because in fact I challenge the idea of a style, and my many interests during these years of working. So this is my. I used in the 70s. I used to be a photorealist painter, and this is the most recognizable painting in the National Museum collection. And Well, it's all you need is love. Which we were talking about is, well, all art is political, I think, but at this time, the Beatles were forbidden in Cuba. So it was a little bit challenge trying to push the wall to the intolerance. So that's it.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be back in this beautiful museum and happy to be with such a good company. For me, what I consider a master in Cuban Art, Flavio. And well, there is a link actually between him and me. Actually, this last work he showed, it was sort of an inspiration, it was not the departing point. It was like the departing point was a personal experience, but for a video I did. But the visuality of this video, it was influenced by this painting. Anyway, I think if we're going to talk about abstractionism in Cuba, we have to start, or we could start anywhere, but we have to mention the fact that when the abstracts, concrete abstracts in Cuba in the 50s started to make their work, even before the revolution triumphed, the government of Batista, or well, officials, considered it like against the dictatorship, because it was a kind of subversive and not very concrete, it was nothing, it was like, ¿cómo se puede decir? Como,
ambiguous.
Sí, ambiguous, thank you. And then the funny thing about it is like when the revolution triumphed, it has also a critic that Juan Marinero, who was against this abstract artist because he thought it was also ambiguous for the revolution interest. Anyway, I think that's very interesting to think, because now actually when you make abstract art in a political, in a context like Cubans, like Cuban has, you might be also judged like escapist, and it's like a very obsolete, way to see the abstraction. Anyway, this is one of the first works I did with soaps, and they are soaps, but they have like a hair. I did like a drawing with hair, and and so there is an art critic called Caridad Blanco in Cuba, and this was in the Centro de Desarrollo de las Artes Visuales, and when she saw it, she said, wow, this is abstraction. And I was studying, and I thought, well, it's true, it's abstract. So, and the idea behind that, this is called the shapes of the instant. It's something that is following, like I follow in all my work, is like that, to try to make people more aware, about the instance, the moment, and by this hair that we usually sometimes found in soaps, or in the bathroom, or in the floor. For me, they can make beautiful shapes, and when you transform this the disgusting thing into a sublime thing, I think it's poetry, and I think it's I like to. Also it's optimism, because it's optimistic, because with so little you can do so much. The same with the chewing gum drawings. So this is hair on paper. I did 80 drawings with hair. And this is a part of my chewing gum series. It's called Chew with Ideas, the whole series. And this is called Chew with Line. And yeah, it's abstract, because it's the only reference is a line. And the chewing gum, but when you make the photograph of the actual drawing, it becomes an abstract image, like that. For example, or this. I also have done works with tapes, cassette tapes. This is called Blue Noise, and it's a painted tape. It's also, I think, also abstract, as you said. I'm interested in abstract as a verb, as a, when you think you're abstract, the essence of everything is abstract. Beauty, truth, many other elements, concepts. And this is a series that I did with the vinyl records, and this is also a very could be a classical reference, no? It's called a square piece of music. And this is called Music Box, also with vinyl records. And I put this work because for me it's like an antecessor of this work you have here, the book. And this is called Interpreted World. And what I did here is I choose the name again of the 5 religions, the same religions that are in the book here, and I translate the name into Braille, into the system for blind. And as Braille is a system of dots in space, so it is the music box. You put these dots in the cylinder and then comes music. And so there were, in the Havana Valeria, there was this structure, and you could in the middle listen to all the names of God, of the 5 ones, or you can approach and go closer and see and hear them. For me, this is to convert the notion of religion in abstract, through the sound. Because what is more abstract than the sound, And, have many other readings, like it says the sound in religion is the first thing that appeared, that was created. And this is a series of drawings called Broken Silence, All Silence, and this is called Broken Silence. It's a series I did with music scores that were empty, the used ones, like very old ones found in libraries, and usually the last page is empty. So I use the empty sheet of a music score as a sign for silence. Right now, I think, by the way, Nasher is saying, listen. Like, I've been using this action, which is also abstract, of listening, in many of my works since the very beginning. Since I use sound, it's about listening. And recently, I saw in Facebook a photograph of the earthquake of Mexico, and it was a woman with the sign silence, and it was silence because they want to hear the voices of people inside these photo broken buildings. And I think that in general, the Nasher is saying, listen, since like now it's so obvious, like, it's so hard to deny this. Well, this is the book, also an abstraction of, what Tobias said, like, oh yeah. The book is the selection of 5 books of the 5 main religions in the world, and the Quran, the Bible, and so on. And I made a pulp with these pages of each of these books. So I destroy each book, and I make a paper, and then I made 5 books with this resulting paper, and so it's called the Book of Faith. And it's not about destroying faith, it's actually to build a new one, and, despite all differences, or like forgetting, like just the essence, which is abstract, actually, and go beyond any other differences. This is a recent work I did I show in my gallery in Madrid, Juana de Espuro, and it's a continuation of this interest of dissolving differences in religion. For me, it's going through the spirituality. So to focus on spirituality beyond these differences in names or way to practice. And so what I did in this case is to melt. I did a jewelry, and what I did is to melt all the pendants of the main religions, like the cross, a Buddha, and so on, and the Cross of David, and I melted and I did a video. They were done in, I asked ¿cómo se dice? Joyero.
Jewelry maker?
A jewelry maker, thank you. And I asked her to make this in silver, each of these pendants. And then in the video, in that little screen, is shown how you melt it. So how these shapes are dissolving one on top of the other. So first, it was in chronological orders how the visions were built. And then at the end, the resulting piece, it was like no shape. It was, but it's still a pendant. So and it's called Transitive States, Religious World. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer.
I'm going to sort of talk about, I have some questions for both of you, but maybe before that, Flavio, I wanted to go back to you a little bit and ask you to just, you mentioned very quickly that your use of titles. Could you give us some more examples of some of your titles? Just to give us an idea of, kind of some of the references that you mentioned the Ad Reinhardt reference, but maybe some of the other titles over time.
The Strange Sexual Life of Barney Newman, for example. Julian Schnabel and Sean Penn measure and compare their penis cheat says now. Well, the title, the painting are not illustration of the title or vice versa. I think they are parallel discourse, but they complement each other. So I created some sort of mechanism which help the confliction. The combination of titles and painting produce a new meaning. I could say that irony and humor is very important in my work also. Titles don't go more to what I hope they are funny most of the case. That's it.
Could you say just a little bit more about the video that we saw? Is this your version of socialist painting?
Well, in a very abstract way, yes. Because I only gave the chance to the artists invited to choose a color. And if they are present to paint the streets. So it's very limited chance to decide by itself. The artist just choose the color and paint it if they are present. In the case of artists that weren't present, I paint the street for them. We managed to have a connection by internet with the artists outside Cuba, and they could see me to paint their color on the canvas.
I'm going to ask both of you a couple questions, but I think we were discussing a little bit together. There's kind of a moment, there's a vogue around Cuban abstraction and historical abstraction right now. You were touching on it a little bit, Glenda, but I was interested in your own, in your education. What were these subjects that were abstract artists discussed in what context, or how are they seen, within your own formation as artists?
Yeah, I was part for a while, or at the beginning of my professional, inclusion in the art world of the group DUP. And this group did under the direction of René Francisco, and this group directed the focus on some this kind this abstract work. For example, I don't know if you remember, you know that in La Rampa there is like the tiles of some of the abstract artists. And then when I wasn't still part of the group, they did like performance around each tile. I saw it. I was a spectator. And then that was called with an abstract look. And then when they did a show in the Havana Gallery called with an abstract look, in which I was part. And so, of course, abstractionism was, the main issue there. Like almost all work were abstract. So I think that's also, could be part of the.
And what years was that?
The La Rampa one was in 1999, I think, and the one in La Galería Havana was in 2000.
Because abstraction was doesn't receive a welcome in the beginning of the revolution. Most of the artists passed to the shadow in a way, and who was? I mean, abstraction wasn't part of the teaching in general. And as I told you, in the end of the 80s, the political situation was very tense in general, and mostly between the artists and art students at the moment. Around the Proyecto Castillo de la Fuerza, many exhibitions were censored. Thomas Edison, which is president, Carlos Cárdenas, many of them. Then the artists decided to create a show of abstract art. And the institution, the Ministry of Culture, in conversation said, that's a provocation. We cannot tolerate abstract art by the young artists. It's a paradox. Abstraction functions as provocation in a way. And the exhibition was censored. And then came the juego de pelota, the artists playing baseball. Like the last yes, the last friction, I mean, between the authorities, the cultural authorities and the artists. I have produced many works related to Sandú Darrié. The title is Something is Moving, Darrié is Coming. Or Los Dos de Villa. Los Dos de Villa waiting for tanto esperar, so much waiting. Los Dos de Villa waiting for young art. So, some kind of homage to Martínez Pedro, the main artist, abstract artist of the moment.
Another question, both of you either live or work, in and out of a Cuban context specifically. How do you find your work always being read through a kind of a Cuban socio-political lens? And if so, how do you manage that, or how do you think about that in your work?
Well, being Cuban means immediately that you are perceived as a Cuban artist, not an artist in general. So every detail is analyzed from a political point of view. Sometimes it's correct interpretation of the word, sometimes it creates many distortions. Sometimes it is in the intention of the artist, and sometimes it's outside the artist. It's in society, in politics, and everything. But it is one issue indeed, how Cuban artists are received around the world, now that Cuban artists are getting more attention internationally.
No, I think the same. Just the same. That it seems that it's no way to escape from this political manipulation, and I'm like a little bit tired of it because sometimes, you know, I do have a comment, and sometimes I just don't. Like there's so many subjects in the world to talk about it, you know, like religion, spirituality, I don't know, all these, you know, naturalism to nature. And I think that are even more essentials, you know. I don't criticize, like I myself have done works, you know, really related to a specific situation that I have, but you know, the world is bigger and than just that. But I think it's a big need and hunger for that.
Big need, sorry, big need.
For the political criticism of Cuban artists, even though they're not living inside, like, because I think it's also very interesting because when you live and you experience what you're living is, you know, it's something different from what you have left and the memories, you know, it's interesting. It's not like it's 2 points of view, you know. And yeah, there's a big hunger for the criticism of this political situation.
I wanted to ask a little bit about the role irony and earnestness play in each of your, and I think it's interesting thinking generationally about the use of those things, you know, and I think Flavio, you're very ironic. It's very in our face, the irony of the titles and how they relate to the images, and I think often. Glenda, your work is incredibly earnest. It's very it's this emotive sincerity that's very almost like aggressive in its emotion, almost in the face of an ironic position. So, or a loss of emotion or something. So I was just wondering if you might both talk about those two sides in your work, sort of irony and earnestness, or the kind of the truth and the irony in the works.
Very abstract question.
Yeah, sorry. I have opinions, but honestly, but you know.
Well, it is very subtle what we are talking about. In fact, I paint because I love painting. But at the same time, I need to have a detached approach. So it came the irony and the humor, a sort of homage, but let's create some conceptual distance. You know, as I told you, for example, abstract impressionists, I said they were believers. I just quote them. It's okay?
No, before you were mentioning the irony of this video, I am scratching $100 bills and I'm sniffing the line made like gold line out of this powder. So yeah, that's ironic and that could be a lot of humor. But I like how you say like this honest, because it's true, like actually behind the decision of using hair, there is a lot of like honest, like why you hide this that is so human, you know? And actually the society that today is shaving, you know, disappearing the hair, and you know, I like, so for me it's a little bit strange, you know, because it's like there, you know? And, well, that's another issue, because we can be talking about it for longer. But yes, it's like showing what it does. Usually don't show, it's hiding. The chewing gum that's disgusting, it's in the floor, you hide it after you take it out of the mouth. the hair, and you know, the inner, the bows from the underwear, feminine underwear, things like that. That's like the honest part of it. But yeah, irony is in a lot of the works. Actually, this book is quite ironic, you know, in a way. The Book of Faith, you know, if you want to see about it.
In what sense?
In the sense that you cannot read it, that it's a book, but you cannot read it, you know, just if you study it like that, you know, it has a shape of a book, but it has a structure of the
You
book.
have to destroy
And you have
the sacred books in order to produce the
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
That's ironic.
Could be.
Why don't we open it up to some questions, you know, or if you have any questions for each other too. Does anybody have questions? I have more, but...
That is a relief. Well, I would like to say something about this declaration.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did everybody get one of these? They're at the front door if you leave.
It's sort of, I produced this for the showing I did in Havana. Every painting, were 31 painting in Galleria Havana. And I make a parody of the Declaration of Human Rights.
A parody of the Declaration.
Yes, but these are the rights and duties of arts.
Do you want to read some of them?
You think so?
The right to make it all banal, or to give much importance to anything. The right, I'm cutting it out. Not to turn attitudes into form. The right to respect tradition, should there be one. The right to work without thinking of anybody, or to address the masses, the market. The right of every artist to abandon any style, even his, her own, and to return to his or her style. This makes sense.
It's parodic, and every time I did a show, or I do a show, or a talk like this, I give it for free. It's humor, full of humor, full of pure irony, and I affirm one thing and contradict immediately this affirmation. So I hope you enjoy it.